Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or corrections?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the Sheriff's Office has asked that we pull item 3F for now. We'll add it later after it's been reviewed. And we will add an item 7B to consider letting an RFP for benefits, for private insurance instead of the state plan for the paid family leave.
Okay, is there anything else? All right,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
all right. Ted makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Dave.
David seconds. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. Okay, public input. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak? All right, come forward to the podium. Sure, yeah. If you would just sign in on the podium right there. And then when you're done, if you want to take a seat and speak into the microphone, that would be fine.
Sit down.
Yes, you can sit down.
Well, Dave and I, this is my neighbor Dave Lacko. My name is Lyle Borgert. Live out here on County Road 32. And we don't mind people shooting. Their neighbors, they like to do that, and that's fine. It's the setting off of the tannerite that we want to get something changed about. I live 200 yards away from this house approximately, and I'd say that's probably further than what it really is, but it's close. And he lives even further west of that, probably another, 150 yards?
East.
And over the weekend, we had an incident there where the neighbors were drinking, shooting all kinds of guns, blowing off tannerite, and it was enough to where our houses were shaking. And we went over there, and I tried talking to them, and basically I got an FU by the people. And now, I've had a lot of medical problems. The neighbors on the other side of these people, he's in a wheelchair. He's had problems. So we need to try to get an ordinance passed saying you can't discharge any tannerite or explosives within 1,000 feet of somebody's residence. That's all we're asking for. And they're only a few miles away from Two Inlet State Forest where you can go out and shoot all you want, blow all the tannerite off you want. There's no need to have it inside of a residential, basically a residential area. They've got 5 acres, I've got 25, he's got 5. Corey Hansen, he's got 38, and this has been an ongoing problem. And as much as they're doing it, it's almost like and they know that we don't like it. It's almost that they're taunting us,
They
or
called
terrorizing us.
They called the sheriff's department that morning and said they were gonna be shooting and blowing up tannerite. So they knew they were gonna be irritating people and so but this went on for over 6 hours on Saturday.
Yeah.
What's that stuff used for?
Pardon me?
What's that used for?
Pretty much just
It's-
making a loud noise. It's
Yeah.
a binary explosive that's legal by ATF standards for personal use such as target shooting. And they buy these kits and you mix it and then a high-powered rifle touches it off.
Like I say, they're using this explosive just whatever purposes they're using it for, just for fun. But they're not taking into consideration the neighbors around them. And they say, I'm only 200, and literally shaking our houses. That's how powerful these things
I
are.
had to give my dog tranquilizers.
And I can attest to that. But it's just like, why to shoot that so close to where people are living? You know, there's no rhyme or reason for it.
So did you have contact with the sheriff's department then?
Yes,
Yes.
he called
Well, I
twice.
called twice.
Once, and they,
There was, well, first of all, the first call I made was regarding the tannerite and the shooting. The second call was when I heard the fully automatic weapons going off. And he heard that while I was talking to him. Unfortunately, he said it's not illegal to shoot full auto as long as the weapon was purchased legally. Well, we don't know.
well,
Yeah.
legally, I think they have to have a federal firearms license to fire that.
And
Now, I don't know if they had that or not. I didn't ask them, but it was full auto. Now, whether they were using like a bump stock or whatever to enhance the automatic, I have no idea. But, you know, they've got kids there, and there was kids running around, I mean, little kids, 3, 4 years old, running around. They were drinking beer, shooting this tannerite off. It was a very unsafe environment. I've done a lot of hunting. I've spent some time in the military, and I'm an outdoorsman, and realistically, there is no need to be shooting off tannerite. It has no purpose except for a big boom. That's all it's got. So if we can get an ordinance passed to where, like I say, you can keep it away from 1,000 yards from any residence, that's fine. I could care less then.
I did find there was an ordinance about disturbing the peace, and it says shooting off explosives without a permit constitutes disturbing the peace. But that just has a fine on it, and I don't know how much teeth there is in it, but that's on the books for the county that I found.
So do you know, did anybody go out and investigate it?
That I do not know.
The deputy at least called them, because when we went over there, well, he asked me if we'd talked to them, and I said, I don't think I want to confront somebody that's shooting firearms, actively, and he decided he wanted to go over, so we went over together, and that's when we got we just pulled up, and they're like, we can do anything we want, this is private property. But when I talked to the deputy, I think he was gonna call them, and when we went over there, they indicated the sheriff's department had been called 3 times, which is what we had called, so apparently, I don't think he went there, maybe just called, I don't know.
Okay. All right, is there anything else?
Can you loan me $1 million?
If I had it, maybe I would, but,
Just out of curiosity,
yes.
County 32, they've been talking about paving it for forever. Is there anything going on with it?
I'm looking at our engineer and she's saying no.
At this time, there's not any, if we get an influx of money or any special grants or anything, we could potentially look at it, but right now what we get is just enough to maintain the system that we have of pavement and gravel.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. All right, is there any other public input? Right, seeing none. Consent agenda.
I'll move to approve.
Char moves, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ted seconds, any more discussion about that? Great. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. County employee recognition.
Morning, Bart. Before we do employee recognition, I'd like to quickly recognize all employees for this year's donation to the Hubbard County Food Shelf. In conversation with food shelf personnel, they said that they typically have more need than donations around the Easter holiday. So the Wellness Committee decided to do the drive over, the annual food drive, the last 2 weeks in March instead of December, which we had done the last few years. The employees collectively donated 213.6 pounds of food and $60 in cash to the food shelf. For County Employee Recognition and Human Services, we have Kathy Melvin. CSAH is recognized for 15 years of service on April 5th. Anna Schilling, social worker intern, began the internship on April 7th. In Natural Resources, Roger Hensel, Parks Maintenance Worker, began the seasonal position on April 7th. The Sheriff's Office, Heather Zocker, Dispatcher Jailer, is recognized for 20 years of service on April 12th. Olia Santwire, Dispatcher Jailer, is recognized for service from December 13th, 2022 to April 21st, 2025. And Eric Ripkema, Deputy Sheriff, began the part-time position on April 14th, 2025. In Veteran Services, Gerald Berkey, Veteran Services Officer, is recognized for 10 years of service on April 6th.
Okay, thank you. Highway Department.
Morning.
Morning.
Let's see. Opened my packet this morning. Quite a few items. Been pretty busy with construction bidding projects the last couple weeks. So the first item on there is to, let's see, review and award the bid for the state project SP 029613013, which is milling, bituminous pavement, and a full-depth reclamation on County Road 13 from Trunk Highway 87 to Trunk Highway 34. We bid this one yesterday, and a very tight, excellent bid came in. And the apparent bidder is Anderson Brothers out of Brainerd, Minnesota, for $2,749,240.46.
I'll make a motion to approve the low quote of number one.
Ed moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Any more discussion? Do you think these bids were they less than your estimates to
Yes.
begin with?
Yep, all of the bids, 6 and below were below our engineer's estimates, so a very, very excellent bid. We've been seeing that kind of across the district right now, that bids are coming in a little lower. Bituminous prices are a little lower than what was expected, which is great for our business.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
All right, the second project we bid is State Project SP 029645015, which is a bridge replacement on CSAH 45 over the Necktie River. And this is a federal bridge replacement project. And again, a very excellent spread of bids came in, and the low bid was Garrett Hansen Contracting out of Black Duck, Minnesota, for $992,900.50.
Is that the same company that did the one on 40? Do you recall?
No, not the one that we've been dealing with on 40.
Okay.
No.
They did do CSAH 16, our bridge. That was probably like 3 years ago, and I think they did a pretty good job, so.
All right.
That was gonna be my question, if we worked with them before.
Yep, we've worked with them before. Yeah, and I attached the map on this one, because this one will be detoured. So there is a detour location map in the packet as well.
Are you having trouble with the bridge on 40?
It's the bridge that was in 2020. We're still dealing with some lingering financial implications due to contractor claiming COVID response and us claiming liquidated damages. State aid is not in agreement with the process, so we're kind of dealing with their attorneys at state aid and what we can do to kind of final that out and get it off the books. And
What's the dollar amount?
it's about 35,000 is what we're retaining from them due to liquidated damages, because Jed had determined that their excuses for delay wasn't due to COVID entirely. He forgave some of the time, but a lot of it was due to improper staffing and timeline on their part of the schedule.
Is state aid more in line with what we're thinking? Or
Yeah,
is what
they're more in line with what we're thinking. They're just, that they want to make sure that all the language that's in the spec book, that we're following it to a T, which we are, but they're still arguing that case. And, you know, they can't submit a claim now for the date of a claim, so really we just need to come to an agreement of finaling it out, and we need state aid backing on our end to push the contractor. They haven't submitted like their IC-134s, which is their contractor, making sure their subcontractors are paying taxes and all that
Yeah.
stuff, so. Some of the final documents they're holding for it.
Okay, so I don't recall, was there a motion to approve?
I don't think so. I'll move to approve the
Right.
bridge.
Tom moves. Is there a second?
Is Ted, I'll second.
Ted seconds. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Federal funds, right?
Yep, that one is 100% federally funded. Yeah. And the CSAH 13 has about 1.3 million federal funding on that one as well.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
All right, so this next item is one that's been in the works for a while. Revoking County Road 103 and turning it back to Todd Township. 103 is located north off of CSAH 1 and goes to the golf course. Essentially, you know, it's a private road in that aspect, that it serves one business. And we've talked to the township, and they're okay with taking it back, because then they're gonna revoke it and turn it into a private road, and the township will then maintain the road. So it'll reduce our county road miles. So I was in talks with the township. Their lawyers and attorneys drafted this agreement, and I had our attorneys review it, and they were in agreement with it. Kind of the agreement is that we'll maintain the road until June 1st, and then we will turn it over with this resolution. And then moving forward, it will just not be county road. It'll be a private, whatever they choose to name it, if it has a name already. And then a little bit of the history I found on the road was included as well.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Shar moves, David seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion carried.
Let's see. Make sure I'm in the same order. All right, the next item is to review and approve the quote for our county project 29-2501, which is our pavement marking, striping essentially for the year. That came with one quote was turned in. It's from Sir Lines-A-Lot out of Edina, Minnesota, and they came in at $60,219.60. That project.
Does this seem reasonable?
Yeah, for the trend of the last 4 years, it seems reasonable. We saw 2020, and Steve can attest to this, 2020 to 2021, there was probably I would say a 50% markup on paint. I don't know why that happened, if it was supply issues or what, but, so it's reasonable for what's been happening in the last couple years. But it's still very high, and striping's turned into kind of a majority owner in Minnesota. Sir Lines-A-Lot has bought out a lot of the smaller companies. They're excellent at what they do, but there's just not a lot of bidders anymore for this type of work. So kind of unfortunate in that sense, but they do a very nice job though.
Sounds like a business opportunity.
Yeah. If you want to get into striping, let me know.
I'll make a motion to approve the one and only quote.
Right, Ted moves, Dave seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Right, motion carried.
Okay. The next item is another county project, 29-2505, which is pavement messages and crosswalks. Again, solicited quotes, and we received 2 quotes for this. Sir Lines-A-Lot out of Edina was the low quote, $45,380 for this. And this is stop bars, stop ahead messages, crosswalks, that type of specialty messaging that's on the roads. They come in and regrind it out and then repaint.
How many crosswalks is there in our system?
Let me see, there's quite a few. When you look at like Nevis, some of the City of Park Rapids ones we own, even Akeley has a few that we own.
Laporte's got a few too, so.
We just haven't ran a contract like this, and I'd say probably 3 or 4 years, so we're kind of behind on keeping up with the maintenance of these. Especially the stop bars is a huge one that we're missing out on. So this one actually came in lower than what we thought, so we might add a few more locations that we're missing out and get those into the project too.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move.
Tom makes the motion,
Is Ted will second.
Ted seconds. All right, any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
All right, almost done. The next one is to review and approve the Cooperative Construction Agreement for the reconstruction of CSAH 1 under SAP 029601007, which is the project in conjunction with the City of Park Rapids on our CSAH 1 in the city limits here. The agreement essentially states out, who's responsible for what items and cost responsible, maintenance responsible, construction responsibilities for the project, and then after the project, who's maintaining what along that section of road. So again, I had our attorneys review this, and they were in agreement with the language. And then City of Park Rapids will be doing their review and, or their approval of the agreement.
Okay,
Does the county plow it in the winter?
We do plow CSAH 1, yep, yeah. But they maintain like the sidewalks, they remove the snow on the sidewalks, and lighting is one that they maintain. Their utilities, their underground storm sewer even, they're kind of responsible. They have a share of responsibility on the storm sewer.
When will this start?
We're not sure on a start date yet. We just got the final plans signed this week, so we're gonna actually advertise it on Saturday this week, and then it has to be 3 weeks, 10 days advertised. So I think May 20th, we're looking at opening bids and then having it awarded. And I would see a very quick turnaround start date, so probably right after Labor Day, I would see a start date.
Memorial Day, you mean?
Or yeah, Memorial, that one. That'd be terrible to start after Labor Day. But Memorial Day, we'll start it, and yeah,
How many weeks do you think it'll take?
it'll probably take most of the summer. It's these urban reconstructs are big, when they go down and do the utilities, it takes a long time to
a lot of
coordinate.
underground.
So are you detouring to 71 and 4?
It'll be on, is it Essex Drive, I believe? It's just north of the city limits, and then it goes over to 81 and down,
Okay.
is how they'll set up the detour. And there'll be access still of residents, they can still get to their homes that are right on the section.
Yeah.
But they might have to, come down a block and then go out to the east or the west to go around if they're working right there. Anything that's open trench-wise, they have to go around.
Well, there's one place I go to a meeting there on that section. That's the
Okay.
SWCD?
Yep, the SWCD.
Is that one I'll have to go around?
There might be a time, if say they pave the sidewalk right in front of the business or the curb and gutter, then yes, you can't cross that, for 3 days or so is like what we like to keep it closed for. So there'll be a time when you might have to park on a block and walk up, but that's, part of the provisions that we write. It states in there that the contractor is responsible for notifying the business owners and the public, with the schedule of construction, and if they need to, not have access for a day or so to do utility improvements.
All right, David made the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried.
All right, and the last one I have is to review and approve the quote for our spring highway sweeping that we do on the roads. We had a quote come from Pro Sweep Incorporated, who's been doing it for us for the past few years. Goes and does curb line and gutters, intersections, anywhere that we have excess material on the roads, and sweeps it up. And
Are they
dumps it.
sweeping your bridges too?
You can sweep them, or we can blow them off with air compressor, and we're actually working on flushing them out or in the process of it, because we're gonna go and crack seal the bridge decks in the next couple months.
Are you gonna do a flood seal on bridge decks or?
It's an epoxy seal.
Not exactly sure what.
Yeah, he said save our ketchup bottles and Dawn dish soap bottles, and I guess you put it in there and you kind of
You're gonna do
follow the cracks.
tracks that way, okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna do that in-house?
Yeah, we're gonna have state aid come in and kind of show us the ropes of it. We've never done it as far as I know. They're gonna come show us how to do it, and then we're gonna have our maintenance guys kind of tackle quite a few of them this summer and get them done.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Bridges get neglected, believe me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's easy to let them go. And they're
Yes.
there forever, you
Yep.
think, and surprise, they're not.
Yep.
And they're expensive to replace.
Very much.
right. Is there a motion to approve the sweeping?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Right, Ted and Shar. Any more discussion? Right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Right,
All right, that's all I got. Thank you.
thank you. All right, natural resources.
Hey, morning.
Morning.
Just a couple things today, but first I want to just say thanks for the final approval for the potlatch lands, and it does secure a lot of access to the other county lands, so it's really nice to get. And also grant and aid trails, they're really important around here. So yeah, thank you guys. And I did look. I listened to the meeting, and there's no encroachments on these parcels that we're obtaining, so it's a good deal there too.
I was wondering, because they've been sitting with this land trust for a little while, some local landowners might start moving things
Yep.
over onto it.
The only issue we've seen in the past is these potlatch lands used to be leased, and people had their deer stands out there, but for the most part, they're taken down and looking really clean. So, yeah. So thank you. And the timber auction yesterday went very well. There's a couple larger mills that are shut down for a month or two, so it was really good to see that we're still getting good prices for the timber tracks, and all tracks sold. I'll bring the information to the next meeting of what the values were. So, but I'll get into this. The first item I have is to review and approve a quote for the replacement of basketball rims, posts, and backboards at Heartland Park. I believe the whole system's called the Standard. I'm not really a basketball guru, but it's the whole basketball hoop and post and all that. And the current ones have been there since 1987. They've seen some abuse over the years, and we're just looking to upgrade to newer basketball hoops. They're not cheap by any means, the commercial ones. We're also trying to obtain quotes for doing some cement work there to fill in some of the open grass areas, because the ledges are getting there's getting to be divots along the edges of the current cement, and we're just worried that people will start hurting their ankles, and we don't want that. But I brought the quotes to the park board, and they suggest that we go with the 6-inch square style, and that comes from Crystal Sports LLC out of Texas, and that comes with a lifetime warranty. It's not the cheapest quote. It's actually the third out of the 5 quotes, but we really would like to have that 6-inch square style with the lifetime warranty. So we're just looking for approval for that, and that's $5,948 for both of the standards.
Whose lifetime?
I know, I'm thinking, wow.
Hopefully yeah, if they last 40 years like the last ones, that'll be pretty good. But
My question is, did anybody else provide a warranty?
looking at the other ones, there was limited warranties, not quite the lifetime one this one had. So if they're actually telling the truth, or yeah, the lifetime one would be really
I
good.
wonder if it's full coverage, or if it, after so many years.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not the whole system. It's maybe the main post or something.
To replace the nets or something?
Yeah, not the nets. Yeah, but, yeah, we're looking for approval for that, and that's what the park board suggests too.
I'm assuming these get a lot of use.
Yeah, whenever you go to Heartland Park, there's always people playing basketball.
That's wonderful. I'll move to approve.
All right, Char moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tom seconds. Any more discussion?
Will you be testing these out yourself?
If I was about 1.5 feet taller, maybe, but.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried.
Thank you. The next one is the yearly porta potty rentals. We actually saw really low quotes surprisingly on this too, so I'm very happy about that. The low quote came from, let's see, I better get the name right. Yeah, Portable John Rental Service out of Bemidji. They're actually a Hubbard County company with a Bemidji address, so that's the low quote. We've used them in the past before. They do a good job, so looking for approval for the low quote of $2,750 for the year for all the normal spots we put these porta potties.
All right, and is there a motion?
Instead, I'll make a motion to approve.
Dave moves, Dave seconds. Any more discussion?
I see all three of these companies are Hubbard County
Yep.
businesses. Nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for me?
Real quick,
Yeah.
in the park, any plans long-term for adding additional pickleball courts? Because people ask me all the time.
Yeah, so, at Heartland Park, there's not much room at that one, but, up at like Ferris Park and up by Cass Lake, there's a tennis court. I believe correct me if I'm wrong, but they use that for, pickleball too. But yeah, I could see opportunities even at Deep Lake Park in the future. 'Cause it's getting to be a big sport, so.
There's one,
Go ahead.
one section of land near the parking spot there. Is there any possibility of getting that sometime in the future?
Yeah, so the state's getting that surveyed out. There's actually 2 chunks of land within the same parcel. They're trying to survey it out so the landowners near Highway 34 can purchase that. It's already leased by that rental company. So they're splitting that, and then they're gonna split or have our chunk of land in Heartland Park ready for us here shortly, I hope.
If we're thinking of the same lot and parcel, then there'd be enough room to put some pickleball courts.
Oh, that 7-acre lot.
Yeah, where they dump snow a lot of times.
Yeah, yep, where the gravel company owns.
Yeah.
Yep, we haven't heard anything on that. No.
So according to the paper, Monaga is taking out their tennis court and putting in a pickleball court?
Yep.
So would that be very costly to do that at Ferris Park?
Oh, that's what we did at Heartland Park. And yeah, I believe it was about $30,000 to convert everything.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's not cheap. Pickleball stuff isn't cheap, but it's doable to convert. Yeah, portable nets are a thing too. People can bring portable nets. Yeah, disc golf's getting to be popular too. So we're hoping to add some disc golf stuff.
Are the nets up yet over there?
Yeah, yep. We put the nets and the windscreens up.
Okay.
Yep. So that's all good to go.
Have you made any progress up at Ferris Park with their?
Yep. So we have it the lanes laid out and brush mowed. We just got to mulch them now and purchase the nets. So
Okay.
yep.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good week.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Okay.
Is your address
Administrator.
released?
I have 2 really brief items this morning. One is the item relative to approving the 1-year lease extension for Department of Corrections in their current space. I know we've had conversations about this and looking at seeing what we can do to improve the space for them. We approved a contract with BKV to come in and do that kind of a department level study. And I believe they're gonna be here before the end of the month to do the department studies to start that. But in the meantime, this was presented by the state, and it's just a continuation of the same monthly rent as we've had in the past, just for a 1-year term.
Okay. Dave moves to approve. Is there a second?
Is Ted all second?
Ted seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
Just a note, did all of you get the email from Mark that the drug court has been approved?
We will probably have him come and talk to us in May about
That'd be
what the
wonderful.
plans are for that.
Okay. And then 7B.
And then 7B, Gina, do you want to address it, or do you just want me? Okay, so the paid leave benefit, we've already been reporting hours, and in 2026, we have to start paying the tax, the additional tax. Right now, it's scheduled to be 0.88% additional. We have to negotiate how we're going to split that. That's the intended split. That's a typical split at this point from what I've seen. The law does allow for, basically you are participating through the state system, or you have the option to purchase private insurance to cover these costs, or we would have the option to propose a plan to do that ourselves. And right now, when I was at my MACA meeting last week, and they asked how many counties are planning on getting requests to have private insurance for that, every hand in the room went up. So what Gina's asking for is just the approval to let the RFP so we can get some bids on private provider to provide this level of insurance for paid family leave.
So is this the one where they can take up to 20 weeks off?
Yes.
Okay, and so then how does, because it has to be covered, and I'm gonna use this as an example. So the county would pay half, and the employer, or the employee, excuse me, would pay half. That
That's the
money-
negotiated part, but the employer has to pay
Right.
half.
Yeah, I get that, but for my example, I'm using that. Okay, and so there's not gonna be enough money in the pool to pay for the amount of people that are requesting to use it. So is that what that's what you're asking the insurance to do?
The amount was set actuarially based on their assumptions and other states' use of this program,
Okay.
this type of a program. One of two things will happen, right? If you have several auto claims, your insurance is gonna go up for the next year, right? If we have many claims, if the state has many claims, then they're gonna end up having to move the needle and move that 0.88 north so that they have sufficiency to cover it. If we go with a private insurance for it, the same thing would happen. If our use exceeds their use plus their administrative fee, then we would probably have a higher renewal the subsequent year. The RFP will ask them to give us a quote, and many counties are anticipating a quote lower than the 0.88
Okay.
for the private insurers. You can see that on page 3 of the legislative handout, I've got that identified as about an $80,000 a year cost in additional tax. So that would be, our premium would supposedly be less than that, but we would know. And going through the RFP process doesn't mean that we're gonna pick a private insurer. It means we're gonna have the option to compare those private insurance quotes. The deadline based on the implementation program is we have to advertise by May 5th, which is why we had to bring this up today rather than wait for the next meeting.
So,
Yep.
Jeff, have you done any calculations since, you're estimating the cost is 83.5?
Mhm.
So how many employees in Hubbard County would be using that in the year to come up with that 83.5?
Well, the 83.5 is based on the 0.44% of a tax against all of our wages for the year. So
Okay, that's how you okay.
it's a calculation. It is, the actuarial review to determine what the use is and study other states that have done this, have given them the pool of how much is gonna happen. Now, as I understand it, and I'm glad Gina's here because she'll correct me if I miss this, so this is like an unemployment insurance. Employees who are filing a claim to take 12 weeks of medical or 12 weeks of family leave have to apply through the state, and they will get up to 90% of their wages reimbursed on a sliding scale.
Is it 12 weeks or 20?
12 weeks of medical or 12 weeks of family, but a combination of the two not to exceed 20.
Okay.
Yep, so it's, there's a lot of if-then statements in this. It's a very complicated process. Some of the concerns about everybody taking 20 weeks off, well, they wouldn't all qualify for that. And the use, the actuarial study, studying the use in states that have already done this, I think Minnesota's the 13th state to put something like this in place. So we have track record data from other places who have done this. But if our use is higher than other states, then those payroll taxes will go up. For right now, we know that we're on the hook for 0.44 of our percent times all of our paid hours starting in 2026. And this is just to have us have an opportunity to look at a private insurer to see if they can give us a better rate than that.
So this is all filtering through our ancillary benefits, integrity benefits. So they're doing a mass RFP for, like 50 counties and 30 cities and with that. But the ad, like Jeff was saying, the deadline is to be in the paper by May 5th. And I didn't want you to see an RFP in the paper and wonder what that was all about. So we have no obligation, we can do the RFP, we can see where it comes. We provided them our data metrics that they would need, basically like the actuarial with the state as well too. It's fully insured, so basically the company is getting the premium. And, they have less claims, they profit, they have more claims, they lose. Some possibly are even because these are ancillary benefits, say like if they're a carrier of short-term or long-term disability, whether they can give us a good quote on those types as well too, then they could consider locking in a 2-year rate, if we tag on with those benefits, but that's all in the future. First step is just to make you aware that we'd like to put this RFP out to give Hubbard County the opportunity to take a look at where we would be at. And
Okay.
then they're also within that ad as well too, because we are up for annual renewal out for quotes with our life insurance. That's included in the RFP as well too, to get those quotes out there.
Might as well make a motion to authorize.
Right, David moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Shar seconds. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, motion carried.
Thank you.
Only because we have to.
It's causing a lot of trouble even for townships and everybody. They're struggling to try to figure out how to comply, how to get started, who's
So-
gonna take care of it all. And it's complicated for them.
Gina, before you leave, I've been somewhat keeping up with this at the state level, and so there's no majority support to delay this. However, there still is talk about adjusting for small employers. Do you know any more on that, or I can ask this afternoon?
I think, what I've read with their definition of small employers is you're looking at like somebody who's 50 or less employees. Just reading, when articles and things come out as well too, I find that interesting because that's kind of the whole purpose of the law, is to help those persons, with that. And then, if they're the consideration of the exemption, but, it doesn't apply to us, so I skip over it and keep going.
For
Okay.
your information, it was Senator Hochschild that was on MRC. I believe there was an amendment put
Yes.
forward to exempt
Yeah.
some smaller businesses.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know if something, with the legislature, they are still, getting the department and getting things, set up to be able to have it up and running, January 1st. As of right now, they're not relaying anything to our HRIS system providers. I mean, UKG is only one of many. They've received nothing of direction of how, that we can get the monies that we have in the system that we're going to, to get them to them. So
We
there's
have
this time.
We have several other policy decisions related to this coming up as well. So if people are taking leave and they're applying for this insurance and it's paying a part of their wages, are we going to allow them to use their PTO or other time off banks that they have with us to make them up to their regular wages or not? And then that creates issues relative to accrual of benefits. What is our rule? What is, there's no real guidance in the statute about how to handle situations like that. And as Gina kind of alluded to, this law really makes a lot of sense for people who didn't already have a paid leave system. It really, I can't begin to think of how much of a mess this is gonna make out of payroll. How many different pay types we're gonna have to put in, how many manual adjustments we're gonna have to do. And I fully support the general idea that people should not be at risk of losing their jobs if they're sick or they need, to take some time for caring for family. But I generally don't. It's creating a whole new department to take care of this instead of working with the existing policies like FMLA and unemployment insurance and administering those through already existing and staffed functions. I mean, in my mind, that would be like saying that we need a whole nother department with 20 employees to do something that we're already doing in another way. It doesn't make much sense, but it is the rule, it is the law, and we have to comply. So having an option to get a private number, as I understand it, then if we get that number from them, we would pay premiums to them, and then they would, employees would then go through their portal to make application for the use of those benefits rather than going through the state portal. So it would be a complete bypass of how employees would have access to those.
But will it still be the state that will determine if they're eligible? So they probably wouldn't,
Yep.
they'll
It would
just have
still be
their
the same
state criteria
criteria.
and then they'll,
Correct.
yeah. This is
Yep.
kind of like reinsurance for Prime West, and every single year, it makes financial sense.
It almost always makes sense to look.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in this case, it can't hurt us to look. And we're not really looking, we're participating with our benefits administrator. They're doing an RFP to make those available for us, in much the same way that health insurance is shopped for us and we don't have to necessarily shop directly, so.
I think the other mention that updates or, things that have been coming out in the law as well too, as when ESST was adopted the first year, the next legislative session, they realized, and they exempted elected officials within the ESST provision, thinking that possibly would be, a path with this as well too, that they would realize that. I've seen nothing where there's been any discussion or anything with exempting elected officials. And in our office discussion, as, Robin said, well, they need your funds. They want your funds to fund the fund, so they're not gonna probably, exempt that. So
I
they can
did
have
go
that
in
money.
and figure if I had to cover half, what it would cost me a year. Just took my salary and. took
They
the
have a
percentage.
calculator, yeah. The state has a calculator out on their website as well too. And that's where we came with the figures.
I will say, just because this afternoon we'll be discussing it, I'm sure, but from a small business perspective, different people I've talked to, depending on the size of your business, but you can see several scenarios where it could be really devastating to those mom and pop business. How are you gonna cover those shifts? Is that gonna be covered by the owner now? I mean, how many hours can you work in a week? Because you just can't go out and replace that employee over that 12 or 20 weeks very easily.
But even if you
Very
do.
expensive too, when you add it up, they work on such small margins, so I really hope they do come up with an exemption for, so many employees or less. Otherwise, I don't know how some of them will be able to do it. I mean, will it happen very often? Probably not, but when it does, it can be really, really devastating when you don't have the staff to cover things.
Well, and that's gonna be our situation as well, too.
Yeah.
So Dave, so the person, if they can hire somebody, that person then becomes eligible also for,
Right.
so it just is
And
a
the
cycle.
If it's a key position, like, I'll just use our business as an example. What if we use our morning announcer? That means one of us is getting up every day at 5 a.m. and working all day, and then it has a residual impact on the rest of your day and what you can get done. That you can't just easily, you just can't easily replace these things. There's certain things that are just really hard to plug somebody else into.
Yeah.
We have businesses now that can't find employees, and all of a sudden they have to find not only the employees that they would normally need, but now somebody else or more to fill these open spots if they happen to, like you say, worst case scenario type of a thing, and maybe it doesn't happen very often, but the times that it does, it's gonna be hard on a business.
And in a time where it's very hard to find employees in the first place, where are you gonna find a temporary employee? It's just like, it's not so
It's
sure
challenging.
it's-
And
timing is not good, but.
we have situations where, like a dispatch and the jail, where we have to staff so many people 24/7, right? So if we've got, if we just schedule for 2080 hours or 2088 hours, we need 4.2 people to cover that one person 24/7 all year. But we already have to figure in what their PTO, what their vacation, what the other time is, so that we're not actually scheduling them for 2080. We have to adjust for those leave allowances. And we're gonna have to take a look at those leave allowances relative to this new possible this new benefit as well. Now, in other situations, downstairs in property records or environmental services, we just shift, right? We don't have to be there we don't have to have 4 people there every day from 8 to 4:30. We need to have the desk covered. So our coverage options, and in human services, we have to kind of slide things back and forth. So there's very few places where we have to do a one-to-one adjustment. Your example about who's staffing the DJ booth in the morning, well, you can't really miss a morning, so somebody has to. For us, that is dispatch and jailer positions. In almost every other case, we have a little bit of flexibility, but we're still gonna have to evaluate that based on, if we end up having this and we end up having use, and we're looking at our highway department and our overtime goes way up, we may have to allocate and look and see, do we wanna pay 3,000 hours of overtime, or do we wanna have one more maintenance staff person, right? That's how we're gonna have to adapt to it. And I don't know what number we're gonna use, we'll have to find best practices, but there will be some of those calculations that are included. And the choice that we're gonna have relative to budgeting for this year is we're either gonna have to budget overtime, or we're gonna have to budget additional hours to cover that new benefit.
Statutorily, almost all the services that we provide are statutory mandated, right? Because we're not doing a lot of extra.
No. No, and exactly, but most of them, some of them have deadlines, and some of them have that 24/7 appearance, but most of them are, process them as they come through, so, the one, I stopped on my way back from the cities in Sherburne County and had a conversation with their administrator, Bruce Messelt, and he's gonna make a proposal this year that they cut some of the staff that they have that are providing services that aren't mandated, that somebody else could, just to give his board options. And
Could you give me just name one that they're doing that,
We are not required to provide driver's license services. I
So
don't,
if we didn't do that,
yep.
because I know people come from all over, because they are so happy with it, so who would do that here, or where would people have to go then?
Somebody in the public could pick up that contract and privatize it.
Okay,
I hesitate to say that, because that's one of the, I mean, that's probably the favorite thing that we do that we
well,
don't
and
have to
I
do.
want to keep that service, yeah, I'm
And
not
if you
proposing-
looked at and I haven't looked at the revenue that offsets the wages that we have up there, and that person doesn't just do that. So if we gave that up, we probably wouldn't be able to cut that position, so it wouldn't make sense. I'm just illustrating a point, and in Sherburne County, they have 1,000 employees, so they have 5 people doing that. They would actually see a savings. But again, it's a service that their public likes to have right there. But we're at that point in time where you're gonna ask me to look at every possible option. And that's one possible option where clearly statutorily, we're not required to provide that. But from the standpoint of service to the community and the actual dollars and cents that we could save by making that change, we can probably get right around to the logic of that and say that doesn't make sense. But you're still gonna probably see it on this year's budget proposal as just an option. But we can't not provide the human services staffing. We are gonna be working hard to take a look at how those groups are organized and structured and how they're able to manage and share their caseload. I know that Mike and Brian and the others are working on that actively. And then in the other departments, we're gonna be doing the same thing. But most of the cost, well, a lot of the costs we're gonna talk about this afternoon, is some of it is actual dollars, cost sharing, paying a portion of something that we hadn't paid before. And a lot of it the other part of it is figuring in the additional staff that we're gonna need to cover the caseload requirements. Like with MAFPA, if our efforts, our active efforts need to go up and we need to have another 10 hours per case to manage that, and we look at the staffing that we have available, that's where that calculation is coming in. It's not that we're paying for the service, it means that we have to have additional staff to provide the service. But in the case where we have the cost shifts, where we're actually paying a percentage, and that's just us paying a portion of the bill.
And one more question on that paid family leave. So currently FMLA is concurrent with people's vacations, right? So then how does it work with paid family leave? Is paid family leave separate, so you'd use that first and then go to
Yeah,
paid?
no, it can be concurrent as well too. It's just though that there's some differences in the paid leave of like, there's a broader category, say, of like family members than what FMLA could be for family members, things of that nature too. So, our integrity benefits is also looking for us as well too, which will be another discussion down the line for leave management. So that you have that compilation of, they're applying for this, do they get this, do they get this, all in conjunction as well too.
Okay.
So FMLA doesn't provide a financial benefit, it provides job protection,
Like unpaid job protected leave.
unpaid job protection.
Okay.
And unemployment insurance covers unemployment. This is a direct replacement of a portion of benefits. And it's up to 90% of wages, up to, I don't remember what the number is, and then after that number, it tails off to a smaller amount, smaller percentage of wages. And then like I said, the complicating issue is relative to what we end up doing with the policy. Do we allow people to use their PTO to make up that pay? We have in certain other circumstances, when people have jury duty, we have ways of dealing with that. So this is the first action we're taking relative to this, other than actually tracking and reporting the hours, so.
Was this really a problem, or was it a solution in search of a problem? I suppose it depends who you talk to, but I distinctively remember over the 30 years running a small business, when I had employees really get sick, we paid them,
Yeah.
whether they were working or not. We took care of it. Now you're gonna have some third-party bureaucracy up here that makes those decisions for everybody. So it's gonna
no
get abused.
relationship.
It just is. It's kind of
There's-
always the way it works.
Yep.
When you take that decision away from the people closest to the problem.
There's two general answers to that. One is, small employers who take care of their employees don't really have a problem, and they've always made the arrangements to do this. Not all employers are that way. And then the other item is that generally, this country is the only one that doesn't already have leave built into the system for employees. And they do have a centralized system for paying that and covering those benefits through. In those cases, it's also run concurrently with the health plan. Your health plan goes with you, and your leave goes with you, and it's not run through your employer in those situations. So there's always going to be a conflict when they're trying to legislate a portion of that rather than negotiate.
Because we all have experience with unemployment insurance, and we know there's two sides of that coin all the time, too.
Yeah,
That medical leave portion is probably pretty easy to monitor, to keep track of, because you gotta have doctor's excuse. But the family leave part, that's the one that I can see where there'd be a lot of abuse in that.
I don't think there can be, because the family leave is gonna be a one-off from the medical leave, right? So if I say I have to take time to care for a parent who's in hospice, I am gonna have the medical documentation on that parent that I say is in hospice, and I need to take that time. If my wife had a baby and I wanna take some time with that, I mean, it'll still be tied back to medical documentation. It just will be one person away from the employee.
So you still gotta have the documentation.
Oh,
the
absolutely,
reasons. Okay.
absolutely.
And that's the
This is
same.
not just call in sick and say, I can't come to work today because I'm doing this. It still has to be applied for, it still has to be approved, and in that case, the medical documentation is just gonna be one person away from the employee. There's a
and
lot,
that's the same with FMLA already
yep.
for a family member.
Okay, is there anything else?
Did we? Yep, we did, okay. That is all I have. We are gonna have a groundbreaking, after the work session in May. That will probably correlate to the point real close within the same week when they're actually breaking ground. I will probably invite Justin to come and give an update, during that meeting, because at that meeting, we'll be transitioning. We'll be getting close to wrapping up on the second floor. We'll be thinking about transitioning about June 1st to working on the first floor, and we'll be starting over there. So I'll probably have Justin from ICS on that May date come up and give an update on the project. But so far, we're working ahead of schedule. We are having very minor issues. I think there's some timeout ordering issues on some of the colors and the carpets and the flooring that we picked. So we're working through, are there appropriate substitutes we can get in the same point of time? We met yesterday with Innovative Office Solutions to essentially confirm the order for the furniture on the second floor. And right now, everything is holding at budget. So, but we'll provide an update, because I think the public and you would want to be able to ask some questions about that.
Ted, are you going to bring your backhoe down for the groundbreaking?
I don't have a trailer
And if you left early in the morning, you could make it here.
the night before.
All right, committee reports. Who wants to start?
I can start mine
Right,
pretty quick.
David?
Let's see. I did go and see staff at Fishbach, just conveyed some of our
Okay.
concerns with different things, nothing in particular. That was a nice meeting. I shared a little bit about MRC. They had a nice legislative update on MRC, but it's, so many things are just so up in the air yet. Well, we'll see how it shakes out. Hopefully it doesn't impact us as bad as we think it's going to. And then Northwest Emergency Communication Board, I had nothing new there, so that's it for me.
Okay. Sure.
I had two things. The NACO call was, there's a lot of representation from large metro, or large, states with large metro areas. The concern, of course, this time was budget cuts from the federal. There were people on from the west that are very concerned about the cuts for fire response, namely New Mexico. The other thing I found interesting is the bulk of the people on the NACO Energy are opposed to managing the federal force. And so I kind of thought that the fire and the management of the forest went hand in hand, but I didn't feel like, Tom, you should have been on the call, because I didn't feel like I had the knowledge base to speak out about it, but I just found that really interesting that they were opposed to management. Because in Hubbard County, we've found that management actually makes healthier.
Healthier forests,
Yeah,
both for wildlife, for
Yeah.
fire reduction, fuel
Yeah.
reduction, I mean,
so anyway, that was that.
That's that disconnect again.
I'm just afraid that, management leads to development or something.
Well,
And
they
so
came up with
get
the
stuck
old
with the
growth.
ideology of just leaving it alone, which is,
They said, the old growth forest, they don't want anything done to, but you can still retain old growth.
Yes.
And so
it's
anyway,
very dangerous when it's next to population.
Yeah.
Not to do anything.
and then Prime West, we had a lot of discussion about where payments are going, and the current structure for payments for the people that are covered is gonna result in all companies, private and like Prime West, losing great dollars amount next year. This last year, they finally got all the numbers done for 2024. Prime West lost $21 million. If you take into account that because we do TPA services for two other joint powers, and plus our investments, that brings it down to a $14 million loss. And we expected loss this last year, and we can sustain loss for a couple of years, but the rates being the level they are next year, Jim actually forwarded a letter that was sent to the state from a private insurance company warning the state that we can't continue to cover these people and stay in business. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. The karma bill, which they've been working on in the legislature, which would, if a county opted to go with Prime West or Joint Powers Board, currently we have, every person that qualifies for benefits gets to choose between two insurance options. And that would allow the Joint Powers Board to be the only person, or the only place that would cover benefits. So our pool would go back up. Part of the loss is just cleaning out. We were at, 66,000 members. We're down to 42,000, I think it is. Part of it was just COVID cleanup, but the other part is that the rates just are not covering. So, anyway,
Interesting.
that's what I have about that.
Okay. I had Healthy Hubbard County 2030, and there, just a couple of the notes from that was infectious diseases. The respiratory diseases like influenza, RSV, and COVID, they've declined, but there's also a lot less testing available, and a lot less people are going to the doctor to be tested, so you really can't track it anyway. So you're guessing that it's there, but people just aren't reporting that they have it. And then the measles was another concern. In Minnesota, we are severely under-vaccinated for measles. So there is the threat of the measles being an outbreak here. But So far, it's all focused on Texas, and it hasn't seemed to move this direction at all by any means. So that's just something to stay aware of. And then we had the community need, the health survey, the assessment survey. We got a preliminary report back. There's a lot of information in here. This is just preliminary. The actual committee that is going to evaluate this and make the recommendations is gonna have a meeting and fine tune everything that's in here. So I wasn't gonna share this preliminary one with anyone yet. I'll wait till the final one comes out. And then after this is taken care of, then the department is gonna move on to the opioid settlement money, how that's gonna be distributed and what it's gonna be used for. And that is all I had. Tom?
Well, the only meeting I had was the local Kichigami Library Board. I belong to the regional one, along with Jeremy, the city councilman. And then the local one, they talked about, they approved the redoing the entrance area, you know, redoing the concrete, putting in bike racks, some new plants. And the funding for that will come from donations to the Friends of the Library. And then I think the only other thing probably can add was that that meeting was heavily attended from the public, but that was organized ahead of time because seats were set up and they never do that before. So, and they were all full. There were over a couple dozen people there, but they were all expressing support for the library and the services they provide. That's all I got.
Okay. Ted?
I had public safety and transportation.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
I guess the main topic on that one, as I recall, was we have the snow removal policy, and we're looking at changing it to the snow and ice control policy, if I've got that correct. And we saw the rough draft for that from Andrea. And then she also talked about some of the people wanting to maybe get their CDLs, and if we were gonna help with that. Steps to obtain a CDL Class A license and what it would cost the state, going through the state and stuff like that. And the need for it and how it could be maybe shared with departments and stuff like that. And that's all I had so far this month.
And those items we discussed will move forward through committees and be brought up. I think she's actually already got the conversation about the snow removal scheduled on one of the work sessions coming up, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Ted.
You're welcome.
Meetings to note, the April 29th department head meeting. Managing difficult conversations with constituents, there's a virtual session and an in-person session. And then the District 2 meeting out in June at Beltrami.
Is that the course that we need to attend with an emergency?
Oh, the
management?
emergency management?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little time consuming.
Is it?
I was gonna ask, because I remember doing that when I first
Yes.
got on the county board. Are we still required to refresh on it?
I will coordinate with Troy and get another reminder out so everybody has direct access to the link again. And then we'll talk about, how long they're good for, and he does want copies of the certificates as you're completing those courses, so you can submit those directly to him. He'll be keeping those for everybody, but I will work with Troy to get that general announcement back out again.
Wait till we get a new link then.
If you have the old one and can do it, and if you can't find it, don't worry too hard, because we're gonna get it out to you quickly.
Okay.
We'll have it out again by the end of the week.
Didn't Denise send out something just last week?
Yes, for the one that was
Updated?
for the updated one. The one was obsolete, the new obsolete. I'm a little concerned about the April 25th deadline. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get everything done in that time frame. So
I'm gonna talk to Troy about the deadlines. I'm not gonna make the April 25th deadline.
Don't think I will either.
that's a lot. I mean, I did the first one, and
Maybe
it took me, I would say, it was probably close to 3 hours to accomplish it.
And that's just one? How many hours?
That was the first one, there's 3
Oh,
total.
my goodness.
I'm gonna take the second one.
So-
There's a lot of terminology in it that you really have to wrap your head around to be able to jump back and forth about what they're talking about. So it takes a fair amount of focus to really get the terminology in your head. Once you have it, it gets a lot easier, but it does take time, definitely.
So at the township level, there had to just be one person that was certified. Would this qualify for the county commissioners, or do we all need to be certified in this?
Ideally, everybody would be here.
Okay.
Primarily because a county board has a significantly different role
Yes.
relative to response to an emergency than the townships would. We would carry a big portion of the role for them if we had an actual incident. So I'll try to talk with Troy, and I'll get something out by the end of the week, just kind of restating and pointing to where those things are, and maybe a better estimate of how much time. I know there was another question about whether, because this is taking a bit of time, whether we would apply per diems to it, and that's really, when I read it, it looks like anything that's over 4 hours would qualify for a per diem, and anything that's less qualifies for half a per diem. And I don't, this is a requirement. You would get per diem when you go to Bemidji for a training, you get per diem for that. So I think it makes sense that we would allow for that. You just have to put it down as other and do that. But ultimately, it's up for you to decide. As I'm reading the rule, it seems like it's covered.
Well, Mr. Chair, can we have a motion for that now?
Yes?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that per diem will apply to this training.
Okay, is there a second?
So what to, like a max? It's 3 different courses, right?
3,
So
correct.
probably-
Oh, yeah.
It's 3
Well,
courses.
So, and it would be, I mean, if it's a more than a 4-hour commitment, then it's a full day per diem. If it's less, then I mean, the policy already,
Sounds like it's a
Just
full.
Just one full day
Yeah.
per diem.
I'll second that.
Even if you spread it out over several days, one full day per diem.
for the
For all 3?
requirements.
Right.
For all 3 courses? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. Okay, so we will recess the meeting.
We need a motion to recess until 2:00.
I wanted to point out, though, the managers' meeting, who would be attending that. I was at the January.
Yes.
I think it's my turn. I haven't gone since December. Have Dave
I
and,
went in February, I think it was.
did you go in March, Dave?
To the managers' meeting?
Yeah?
No.
Actually, I prefer not to do March.
Well, March is gone. Can
Hey,
you,
No, I did not go in March. I showed up late.
can you go in April? I actually have a commitment at 8:15 that morning.
I probably can.
Okay, I'll put myself down to go in May.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Very good. So,
We would want a motion to recess until 2:00.
we'll need a motion to recess.
Yeah, that.
All right, motion to recess till 2:00 by Ted.
I'll
Is there a
second.
second? Shar seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. We will recess.